darling.
I'm so glad to have the second episode with you. For the ones who haven't heard our first talk show, which I highly recommend for everyone to go and listen because it was very juicy.
It was fun.
Yeah, a lot of valuable information there. Yeah. We went deep.
We did.
But can you please introduce yourself? What are you doing?
Yeah. My name is Jeanette, and I am from the States, living in Estonia, Tallinn. And I currently am the editor-in-chief for Mindvalley Meditations. And that is going wonderful. Meditations are awesome. And so is Mindvalley. And that's pretty much what I've got going on at the moment.
But are you meditating?
Not like religiously, but yeah, I meditate frequently for many years in different ways. Like there's so many different styles. So yeah.
But how come you ended up on Mindvalley and on a meditation side?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with Mindvalley was just a total coincidence. I just randomly got introduced to the CEO of Mindvalley by a mutual friend, and we started talking about plant medicine and my background in psychology, and I also have a background in sales. And so he just kind of found that triad to be valuable for the Mindvalley community, and he invited me to apply for a job. And so just based on everything we talked about, there was a position open for the meditation department. And so, yeah, it just like worked itself out.
Yeah, it did. I'm super glad it did, because I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful to have met you.
Friends for life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But you have a background in psychology as well.
Yeah.
But you never pursued it as a career?
No. For anybody who didn't catch the talk show, basically I just kind of mentioned how I studied it in college, and I have an honors degree in psychology, but I couldn't really compartmentalize the idea of becoming a therapist and dealing with people's darkest traumas. And I think a big part of that, which I didn't realize at the time, was that I hadn't worked through any of my own stuff. And so I just kind of like put it to the side, but my interest and passion was deeply in the subject matter. So I kept studying and just, going to all kinds of retreats and mindfulness stuff and taking courses and reading the books and doing all of that. And most recently, becoming a certified coach.
Yes, congrats. I'm so proud of you. I
think
it suits you so well. So well.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from you, Coach Lacey.
Gonna change the world, one person at a time.
I hope so. Yeah, that's the plan.
So today's topic is toxic positivity. How do you see it? What is toxic positivity?
Yeah, it's an interesting term because, who doesn't like positivity, right? Who doesn't like rainbows and beauty and all that stuff? But I don't know. I think social media and the rise of it has kind of given a different life to just how people present themselves, right? Because seeing some things in person, like if you run into a friend or even if you call them, sometimes it's really hard to miss like something's going on, or, just every moment of every day isn't a moment you would like for people to see you, you know what I mean? And so social media just allows you to present like whatever you want. It could even be a completely Photoshop photo of yourself in some beautiful place. And I've posted a lot of beautiful traveling pictures. I'm not like a big food poster. I have posted food before. And of course, it's mostly positive. There have been a few sprinkles of vulnerability in there where I'm really sharing some tough things, but I've really struggled with that because I want to be positive. I want to uplift. But I found that when I've shared some of those difficult things where I learned something through making a mistake or suffering or through loss or something, that a lot of people just related, and it was really helpful. So on the one hand, I'm like, I don't want to complain and I don't want to, seem like a Debbie Downer or something like that. But meanwhile, people are going through the same thing and they feel like heard and seen, and they can kind of somewhat talk about it or read about it a little bit, and it's a positive outcome. So, I think a healthy amount of just like realism is good, but there's just so much like, be happy and just be positive. And that does work a lot, right? Like it can work. Like if you're going to do a performance and you're nervous because you're going to sing in front of the whole school, you could be like, oh my God, I'm going to suck. or you could be positive, right? And just be like, I'm going to rock this. Like in that case, that makes a lot of sense. But if you have somebody who's depressed, or you have somebody who's grieving or suffering an addiction or having a tough time getting out of an abusive relationship or whatever, you can't just say to somebody, be positive. You know, it's actually insulting and can really anger some people because they don't feel seen or heard. And basically when you're just telling somebody to be positive, you're ignoring the feelings that are trying to come up in that person. And, you know, we talked about the shadow last week too. The shadow side, which is a Carl Jung concept. And basically it's just those sides of yourself that you don't post on social media or show everybody your insecurities and all that stuff. And I think a big part of what we're all trying to achieve through our evolution and our personal growth, whether we call it this or not, is like the integration of our shadow and our light. And then once that happens, there's like a freedom and a peace. And so I really appreciate and respect a lot of the people who are keeping it real online, those like influencers and all those people who are real and who are sharing real things, like those moms who, you know, they used to be or they are fitness models, and then they have a baby and they're showing like their mangled belly and how big they are. And they're just like, this is where I am. I'm okay with it. I have my baby. And of course, some people shame them. And most people are like, you're amazing. You look beautiful and everything. So that's like keeping it real, right? Not just, you know, coming back 6 months later with that fitness body and posting it and then making other moms feel like a piece of shit because they're still fat, you know, and you're supposed to, and then you're giving them the standard that they're supposed to somehow compare themselves to, even if it's subconsciously. So I think toxic positivity it only applies into situations where you're not really hearing what the person is saying, which is sometimes the only thing somebody wants. Because saying like, be positive, or have you tried this, or, you know, don't think about it that way, or don't complain so much, or the sun always rises, whatever. It's like, you know, it's dismissive, and it's also kind of minimizing of what the person's trying to say. And maybe that's not even what it's about, you know? And so my suggestion would be, instead of saying be positive, just say, you know, how does that make you feel? Or I hear you. Or, man, that sounds really tough. I'm here for you. Or if I were in your shoes, I would feel the same way. You know, it's just like more of an acknowledgement versus like, oh man, don't let it get to you. Come on. It was just your boss having a bad day and, you know, calling you a bitch.
Yes, so super important what you're saying now. Those examples are so good because we as humans, I think I'm guilty of it. I think I've done it like so many times in my life actually. And it comes from a good place because I want someone dear to me to feel better, right? So I'm not doing it consciously at all. It just comes like without thinking. It's like, don't worry, it's going to be better. Yeah. It really comes from a loving place, but it's absolutely not what they need at that time. But I feel that there's very subtle line actually to understand when is the right moment to let's say be a bit more uplifting, or to give them this acknowledgement of, I understand you, I know what you're going through, or I hear you, I'm here for you if you need me. What do you need? Like it's how do you think we can make the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on a few things, like what is your relationship to this person, right? Like if it's your really good friend and you want to really truly be there for them and invest time and energy in them, then you could sit down with them and say, you know, I really hear you. I want you to know that you can talk to me if you want to get some things out, or just, you know, vent or whatever, like I'm here for you. If it's someone you work with and it's kind of uncomfortable and they're just like complaining to you, you can just say, you know, I'm really sorry you're going through that. That must be really tough. And I feel for you. So you're not like inviting them necessarily into a deeper conversation, but you're still acknowledging them. You're not like, chin up, you'll find another husband, you know, like when somebody's going through a divorce, that's pretty insensitive. So I think at any level of closeness or relationship, you can still honor the acknowledgement in certain situations. But again, if somebody's clothes got covered in mud and their day is ruined, it's totally fine to say it's okay, you know, you still look great. It kind of looks like you bought the pants that way, or you know, make a joke, lighten it up, and just it's not like, oh, you have to go up to them and put your hand on your heart. Oh, your pants are dirty. That must be really challenging for you. How does it make you feel? You know, so it's really just about like reading the room and the context of the situation, but just kind of having the awareness that toxic positivity exists, and just to be really sensitive around bigger issues: divorce, grief, addiction, depression, loss of job, anything that can be like really hurtful to someone's identity, you know, loss of a position, loss of a job, or sickness. You know, if somebody's sick and dying of cancer, don't say be positive. You know, that's actually a really harmful thing to say to some people in those situations. Some of them are very strong and those things don't bother them and they're used to hearing it. But it can really bring somebody down when they're already sick and they're not feeling heard, and, you know, yeah.
Well, that's super interesting. First of all, I want to come back to what you said, the acknowledgement part, because actually I think it's pretty true that first step should be acknowledgement. It doesn't matter even like if it's a big thing or a small thing. If someone even tells you about the example you brought up about the pants, you can still acknowledge it. You're like, yeah, I see it. I don't know, it must be uncomfortable, but like, you know, it's not a big deal. Or I don't know, if you want, let's go home and change the pants, right?
Yeah.
But it's still acknowledgement. There's this aspect of, yes, I hear you. I think it's super important. But on the other side, I've been to some of the conferences. I'm very bad at remembering names now. But,
me too.
But I see you bringing up the Carl Jung, and you're good with names, much better than I am. But it's it's a tricky place, I find, like, because there's so much research done on being sick and like cancer patients, where it's actually suggested for them to keep their minds positive, because that's what there's even cases of recoveries, and it's very much thanks to the positive mindset, instead of being in a negative and almost thinking that my life is over. It's like we have such a big power. I think that's why we have this controversy of positive thinking and what it really is, because at some points it's really necessary in life, and it can actually take us forward, and even like cure from illnesses, if otherwise we would just stay there and like bring upon the worst on ourselves.
The effects of positivity, especially when someone is sick or depressed, is physically measurable. I mean, it's so powerful, and there are ways to help people to feel more positive. But, you know, to say to someone, like, say, for example, there's an anorexic and you just look at her and you say, love yourself. You know what I mean? It's like, you're right, she should love herself, but she doesn't know how, and there's a lot of other things involved. So I think, you know, instead of saying to someone, be positive, if someone says, oh my God, you know, I hate my life, you know, you can find a way to help them maybe reframe that or rephrase that, or try to focus on some things you know that they like and say, you know what, this day does suck, but just like, isn't there one thing that happened today that made you smile? Or isn't like, just kind of trying to reframe either a thought into a positive thing. Like, for example, you know, I'm a loser. You could reframe it into, I am doing the best that I can, and I've accomplished a lot of things. I'm not exactly where I want to go, but I'm on my way, and I'm taking steps, and I'm doing the best that I can. So it's just like, it's an exercise of like reframing, and that helps you be more positive, you know. Meditating helps you be more positive, and there's a lot of things that help you be more positive, and I think it's more helpful to learn or do or teach or suggest or help people, guide them through that, than to, you know, state the obvious and say like, be positive.
Yeah, because it normally doesn't work either. And I think the line might also be that one thing is when you are like suppressing the reality or ignoring what's going on inside you for real. Like I think that's this toxic positivity if you're talking about personal level. It's because you see people out there and they're like always super happy, always trying to be like super chilled, always making jokes. Like it's a first thing that you can see that actually, like what I heard once, my meditation teacher taught me that if you see someone extremely positive, you can be sure that there's the same amount of sadness inside of them.
Yeah.
And I find it to be so true, at least on my own experiences with people. It's like it's a protection mechanism. And this means that you're actually ignoring or you don't want to face your emotions. And if we're talking about this sicknesses or illnesses, one thing is like trying to ignore that you're sick and just telling yourself, I'm going to be fine, everything is okay, I don't have the sickness, it's not there. Or it's like, I understand what's going on, but now I'm trying to consciously concentrate on the positive.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference, or how do you see it?
Well, I kind of got stuck on something you said earlier for a second, because you were saying how, you know, the people, like what your meditation teacher taught you about how some of the more positive people have the equal amount of darkness. And it just like came, you know, Robin Williams just flashed before my eyes, like all these people, these entertainers, these comedians, and Chris Farley, you know, the big guy who was on Saturday Night Live, who, gosh, he was just so great. And all these really epic, hilarious comedians are some of the people who have the deepest, darkest depressions that, you know, obviously lead to suicide, unfortunately, a lot. And isn't that quite an interesting contrast? You know, and
I totally agree, because this positivity is a big protection.
And so is humor.
Yeah, exactly.
People make jokes all the time to deflect and avoid, you know, reaching a certain thing or feeling or emotion. Yeah, but I mean, I have read and I have heard so much about people who a change of attitude just changes their whole life, whether they lost their legs, whether they're paralyzed. It's amazing how some of these people who suffer such life-changing accidents and debilitations manage to go to the Paralympics, you know, and just like be, you know, international speakers for inspiration and stuff like that. And so I think your attitude can be the difference between life and death sometimes, you know, like a person who's equally as sick as another person, but one of them is like, I'm going to fight. I know I'm healthy. I'm going to do everything I can. I want to be with my friends, my family. And then you have someone who's just given up. I mean, you know, I think they would have very different outcomes.
Yeah. And I think maybe people are even scared because it's like we are discussing now, it's not that when you accept the reality and you accept the negative emotions about some situation in your life, that you're gonna be stuck there or that you're gonna stay there. It's just like if we ignore them, it's probably gonna haunt us until we do recognize them. And the problem normally gets deeper until you are going to face it. Like you're just, your face is in the mud and you have to look at them at some point. Yeah. So
it's like those things you're carrying, like bags from so long ago, and you're not letting them go or looking back. You're just like looking forward and just dragging these things, and it's getting heavier and heavier. Yeah.
But what's your view on, do you have any experience, or do you know, is it possible to come out of these dark places or situations or negative emotions by being positive?
You know, I can speak for myself, and then one of my friends, teachers, mentors who passed, and his experiences before he passed. So for me, I have reached the pits several times in my life where I really was just kind of contemplating, how am I going to exit this dimension, you know. I just didn't want to be on the earth anymore. And I up there you go, like laughter, right? Like you were talking earlier. Yeah. That's funny, right? Yeah. Suicide, it's hilarious. And so so yeah, I've been to places.
That's not healthy. We're joking. Anyone who's listening.
Yeah, that's sarcasm. So yeah. So yeah, I've been in those places many times, and it's so scary, and you feel so alone and just lost and hopeless. And I think that in my more recent history, since I've been working a lot more on myself and my personal growth and my traumas and evolution and all of that, I've acquired tools. Mm-hmm. And so in those moments of desperation where I was just so close, you know, I somehow would reach there, or there would be like a light of something I've learned, or some kind of tool, or even the strength to just call the right person. You know what I mean? Like one time it was a call to my coach. I couldn't even call any of my friends because I just, for lots of reasons, I know it might be hard to understand for people, like, why wouldn't you call your friends? I do have friends that love me and that they've been there for me a lot, but when you're in those really sad, dark places, there's shame and there's guilt and there's like a lot of embarrassment, and so the people that are your friends aren't the first ones that come to your mind. So I had called my coach one day when I was just in the pits, and she brought me out of it. You know, she didn't say, be positive, you have your whole life ahead of you, or anything like that. She said, I know how you feel. I've been there. I went through this, and I was on my knees, and I felt like this, and I thought this, and blah, blah, blah. And that for me was so much more powerful than her telling me, people love you, you've, you know, like, you have so much going on, and be positive, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think, you know, in those moments, and it's weird because I'm like thinking of, you know, ending my life, and I'm sitting there thinking about all the other people who are feeling this way all over the world for various reasons, and thinking about the lack of resources and the tools that they don't have. They just don't have tools. They don't know about shadow side or healing your trauma or have anyone to talk to. Mm-hmm. You know, there's just so many people who just don't have anywhere to reach for. And so I think that's why a lot of times people like you and I want to get involved in this, just to in the business of coaching, is just to show people there's another way of looking at things, and you know, you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And I hear you and I see you. Mm-hmm. You know, and so yeah, the other example I wanted to give you, if it's okay, was this shaman. He didn't like to be called that, but that's what he was. His name is Diego Palma, and he was the, I guess, head of the Sacred Valley tribe, which is it's a company name. There's a website, and there's also a center for retreats, plant medicine retreats, and he's been doing it for like a couple of decades, and just really, really powerful man. And so he had bone cancer, and then he overcame it, and then a couple of years later it came back, and the last few weeks of his life were amazing, because he had his hospital bed in his house by this beautiful window. I think they built something to make it better for him. And he had this beautiful view of the mountains. He had friends coming over all the time, playing songs. Like, he knew he was dying and there wasn't any time left. And he could have chosen to be alone and cry and just be like, I can't believe this is it, or whatever that you know, not helpful self-talk is. And he just like literally had parties. There's pictures of him in his hospital bed with his guitar, people around him having a beer. I mean, he was literally telling everybody around him, like, I am totally good. I am perfectly at peace with everything that is happening. And that's amazing. You know, I find that really incredible, because of course a lot of people are afraid of death, you know, but this man chose to not be afraid, and the last days of his life were really joyous and surrounded by people and lots of music and love and some pisco sour, and just like, yeah. And then he passed, and yeah, people cried, and then they celebrated again.
Yeah, but what I hear from you is, what I get is that actually this it's still much more helpful to acknowledge the truth.
Yeah.
Rather than escape from it. Because like from my own experience as well, I can say that I never managed to run or escape from my shadow side or from my depression or from my whatever negative emotions come up. I did manage in some cases for a very long time, but it wasn't really being in touch with myself.
Yeah.
It's like you can run. Yeah. Actually, you can fake for a very long time. But the question is like, at what cost?
Yeah.
Because I feel that there's always a cost. Okay, I believe life doesn't make mistakes, so it just depends like how am I going to evolve. Eventually I'm gonna get there where I'm supposed to get. But instead of taking like 2 years, 5 years, now just knowing that facing my negative emotions or the situation that I am in and accepting the reality of it, I can change it so much faster.
Yeah.
Even the example you gave of the shaman, it's like I hear it is that he actually accepted his death.
He didn't want treatment. He was like,
but he wasn't like escaping the reality or being in this fake positivity, like, oh, I'm not gonna die, everything is fine, I'm just gonna live my life, be happy. I think you can be in this state like celebration and when you're actually accepting the hard reality that you're in, then you can change it around.
Absolutely. It was a beautiful living example of what's possible. Like the thought of being in a hospital bed at your home, surrounded by the people that you love with music in your last days of life. It's the opposite of the thoughts of like having tubes in your body and your family's crying over you in the hospital. I mean, it doesn't always have to be that way. And what you said, about the process, like you can keep ignoring it or looking away or distracting, which I did that for most of my 20s. Even though I was actively working on my psychology degree, I was absolutely like not working on myself. I was just learning and learning and learning and learning, but not doing the work for me, and so what you said about, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. It's up to you how much you want to look away until you're ready to face it. And it's like, how many years, how many failed relationships, how many, not just romantic, but like friendships also, or how many times does the cycle have to repeat, right, before it's broken?
Yeah, that's very well put, because that's what I find in life. Like if you don't face it, if you're not accepting the truth, it keeps on coming back. It's gonna chase you until you are forced to face it. It's like I feel personally that there's no escape. It's always the fast way is facing the reality.
Going through it.
Going through it. But what are your examples from your own life? You said that in your 20s you were escaping. Like, can you give some concrete example?
I mean, I worked as a model for most of my 20s, and I studied. I went to college, and I was a good student, and I was a good worker. But outside of that, all of my time was partying. Like, I mean, lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, and it was for various reasons. It was to numb the pain. It was to avoid facing what I needed to face. It was also seeking something higher, a different feeling, wanting to like feel something more or different. So it's not just one thing. There were many reasons depending on, but ultimately it was to not face my shit in some way. So I say that with the bad drugs, I guess you could say, like the darker drugs, in the clubs and stuff. I think in the alcohol to that amount that was present in my earlier 20s, that was just literally not wanting to be present, doing everything I could possibly do at any moment to not be present in any moment that I could. When I'm at school, I can be present at school and focused on that. When I'm at work, I can focus on work. And then the rest of the time, it's like, let's go, And later, it somehow evolved, just like with my personality, from the seeds of my curiosity of psychology and evolution into more psychedelic drugs. I didn't even realize when I started doing mushrooms that it was a sacred plant, that it had all of these healing properties, that it was an ancient plant, you know, and here I am thinking this is just like something that grows on cows that people in the, you know, cow poop that people in the US just do to get messed up. And so it just started kind of like affecting me in that way. And then the plant medicine started pulling me towards them and away from the darker, like lower vibe drugs, which I don't do anymore. But yeah, the plant medicines, the things that elevate your vibration that come from nature and, you know, DMT related and things like that, I am not against at all. But I think it's important to realize the intention, because you can still use those things to not face, you know, certain things. It's a lot harder because they're going to take you a certain place and that is it. You know, you can black out, you can wind up in the hospital with ecstasy or cocaine or alcohol or all these other drugs that are in letter forms, you know, GHB and whatever. Those things are just horrible in all ways and have no benefit whatsoever, and they're dangerous. And the plant medicines that come from nature, that come from ancient cultures and from all over the world, you know what I mean, that have been kind of like, I don't know, I can't think of a better word, bastardized, just like abused and used, have more of benefits. So that's just one example of how I avoided heavily as much as I could, like intentionally.
But yeah, there were so many important points that came out from your talk. One of them is that actually we do tend to escape, even like you said, you were a very good student and you had a decent job and you were working, and people often don't realize that even those things can be an escape.
Yes.
It's a very easy way to escape your reality.
Yeah. It's great that you brought that up.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, we all know a workaholic, don't we? Someone who just cannot stop. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how far you can take your education. You can go to PhD. I think that's a great accomplishment, but it can also be just a complete distraction. And, you know, once you get your PhD, I don't know how old you have to be for that. I don't have a PhD, but if you're like, you know, 40 or 45 or whatever, it's going to come. When you're done with your PhD, whatever it is that you've been avoiding.
You can go to study something else, though.
That's true.
You can take another profession.
5
That's
PhD.
always
Yeah.
You can take another bachelor and another one.
You're
and
right.
Another
It never
one.
ends.
Yeah. You can escape. Like I've seen people, they just find another subject that they would like to learn, or change the job, or work harder, or open another business, because it's an easy way out. But in a way, if we are comparing clearly studies, work versus alcohol or drugs, it's better escape.
Definitely.
But it's still an escape, though. It can be. It doesn't have to. Like clearly we need to work and study. It's all healthy, but it depends. You have to just introspect and see why are you doing it, like why do you stay those long hours? Is it really necessary, or are you trying to escape something? But when you were in your 20s, like, were you aware of it, or you were doing it just to survive?
I don't think I was aware of it, no. I really don't think so. I mean, there were times in my 20s where I had seen therapists and stuff like that, just to try to kind of, just, you know, 20s is a long time. A decade's hard to pinpoint certain things, but visited certain therapists and things have come up to bring this to light. But it's, I mean, when you're just constantly in that state of like no mind and no connection, you're not really like processing and thinking, I guess, too much. And that's why it's so important to stay occupied all the time. That's true. That's very good.
If you're
avoiding, of course.
If you are avoiding. But I think that's the first step, maybe even like, because I think a lot of us are in this system, like, so we don't even take the time to know or understand that there's something negative inside of us that needs to be addressed, like that we are escaping. Like, how can you change your life if you don't even have this awareness? Like, first thing is to slow down, to allow yourself those moments alone where this comes on the surface, because otherwise it stays not in your consciousness. You're absolutely right, and I think that works for a lot of people. I do think that can be also really scary for some people, you know,
and just can't handle it. And that's why I think it's so helpful to have support, whether it's your family or your friends, if your family is the problem, or if your friends are the problem, or if both of those are a problem, then a coach or, you know, a mental health counselor, a therapist, just anybody who can help guide, you know. And that was really, really helpful for me several times to deal and to manage, not to mention the knowledge that I gained about, you know, psychology in school. And so, you know, I haven't really suffered sexual abuse, for example. So, you know, I can't speak from personal experience, but I would say if someone has experienced sexual abuse and that's something that's really, really messing with them and they're just not being able to properly function or face anything, you know, I wouldn't say to them like, you know, you should just sit there and meditate and just be with yourself in your silence and your feelings. I would suggest like do that with someone who can help hold space for you and guide you, because it is really difficult and scary. So, but in general, day to day, what I feel like you're saying is to take the time to have literal quiet and peace whenever you can. Like, instead of just waking up in the morning, going to brush your teeth, going to coming home, doing this for the kids, and going to bed, like finding a space somewhere where there can be nothing, whether it's meditating in the morning, whether it's going for a walk, and not even like listening to a podcast when you're walking, which sounds really productive, right? Like I like productivity, but there's got to be some time for nothing for your brain to process other than whatever is going on in your brain or your heart or your feelings, you know, not just your brain.
Yeah, because otherwise you can't connect to yourself. I don't think we can. Like I find, at least from my own experience and for other people's as well, it's like you can get in touch with yourself only when you take those silent moments. Yeah. Otherwise you can't understand what's going on inside of you. Yeah. You can't be in touch with that.
Yeah. Yeah, those silent moments are tough sometimes. I know you know what I'm talking about, you know. And I've had some silent moments like where I just, you know, I'm at home and I'm like, all right, I really want to do something right now. It's either like get a glass of wine or put on the Netflix or read a book. And then I'm like, I know what I need to do. I need to go into my meditation room and I need to sit and I need to cry. And that's what I need to do, you know. And I'll just go in there and I'll just sit and I'll just like let it out, you know. And crying sounds unpleasant, and for some people it's like, I'm not gonna go sit in a fucking room and cry, but I literally moved the energy in that moment of what wanted to come through me, and that has like a relief, a release, an effect, you know. It's like, because if I just go and drink more wine, which I've done many times, you know, it's not moving energy.
Yeah, and nothing is gonna change. Yeah, you still, there comes a time when you have to face your sadness. But it's so important that you said that, like, taking this time. And I believe that being able to feel those negative emotions, I don't want to say negative, I just want to make clear here that they are actually not negative. Somehow this word negative sounds negative, but actually those emotions are not negative. Anger, sadness, they all have their place. They are actually necessary. They're our friends. Emotions, I think, are like biggest friends for understand. They're here, they're guides. They're letting us know what's going on. And like being at that place where you allow yourself to feel those emotions, it needs strength. I think only like strong people can sit in their emotions and feel them. Because a lot of people, there's this wrong perception of, oh, I'm weak, I don't want to cry because then I'm weak, or it's a weakness. And
I see what you're saying.
No, it's not a weakness. Yeah. It's actually a strength. And if you can tolerate those emotions, it means that you're a fucking strong person.
Yeah. It's courageous to face these emotions. They're scary. Yeah. Like, I remember when I first did ayahuasca, the thing that was the scariest to me, and I've heard so many people say this, it's a common human thing, is I'm afraid to face my darkness. I'm afraid to face my demons. I don't know what's in there. I don't know what I've been hiding. I don't know what I've been repressing. And the thought of what could come out is terrifying, you know? And so many people, you know, 90-year-olds, literally 14-year-olds. I've seen pregnant women. They're so brave, and they go and they do these ceremonies, and they sit in this darkness, and they cry and they purge. And I'm just like, I was almost 30, and there, this 90-year-old lady walks in with a cane. She's not scared. She's not scared, And so, obviously she's probably done more work than me. But yeah,
or she might be scared. You just don't know. See it.
Yeah. She looked like a badass, but I could have just been judging her by her badass vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is that like, it does take courage to face your emotions. And I think a lot of people, mostly men, not all men, but people who have a fear of like losing control. It's like, if I let this thing out, I'm just going to cry and, it's also a weakness to fear of losing control, because losing control is surrendering, which means you're trusting, and the fact, the people who don't want to surrender, I mean, it comes from somewhere. They've experienced something that has made them not want to lose control, and those are all things that come up, of course. So yeah, it does take courage to face your emotions. And I think it is strong and courageous and authentic to cry, especially when men need to do it. I think it's great that a lot of men are just being more in touch with their emotions lately. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I totally agree. I like the word courageous, maybe even more. But I just want to say here, like, I know very well that those coping mechanisms, we need them. At some point in life, we need them, especially if you're kids and we have not been taught how to handle those emotions. Like, then this having control or using humor as a protection mechanism or as a survival instinct, it's totally fine. Like, that's what life is about, we are evolving, and then we start growing, and then we start unlayering everything that has been caused to us, right? But I believe, like, when I started to work on my emotions, like, we have to take very small steps, because it is scary. It is scary. And like, if you let everything, like, I think if people are listening to our podcast right now, it's not like we are saying like, go and sit there with all your emotions. Like the point that you were also saying before, that I believe is so true, to have help, like to do it with a therapist, to have a mentor, and not wanting to, I don't know, be perfect. Suddenly, like, I want to feel emotions, and then I want to feel emotions, next day I'm gonna be angry, sad, frustrated, everything all at once. Like, there's these little steps, because I was suppressing emotions for so long, really? for so long. When I was 25, my friends saw me cry, and they were like shocked. They were
really?
They were like, I never seen you cry. What has happened? But I started doing the work consciously. I was like, okay, I'm done suppressing my emotions. Like, I really need to get in touch now, because I was deeply depressed at that point. And I was like the happiest person in the room always. No one had any clue. Like,
well, that's how you presented, but you weren't really, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, no one knew. Everybody thought I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm bubble, but I was super depressed. And then I was like, that's what pushed me to start doing the work and facing my emotions. But I had to do it slowly, because otherwise I wouldn't have handled them. Like, if we have been suppressing the emotions, we have to take very little steps, I believe.
Definitely.
And like you said before, I think it's super helpful to have help and support.
Yeah, I think, it's like anything else, right? Going to the gym. I mean, you could go to the gym for 3 hours for one day, and you're just basically not going to be able to walk or go to the bathroom for a week, but you're not going to get the body that you want. School, I mean, everything takes time. If you, everything that you want to accomplish, it has a series of steps. And in the event of our healing and our trauma and the work that we want to do to live a better life, to be better at life, it's going through layers and layers and layers and layers. And it's like, you've gone through 3 and you discover there's several more ahead. And it's just like, you find out more things, and sometimes you have more questions. And it is a process. I mean, I've been, I would say, on a pretty serious, steady path of self-evolution and plant medicine for like 9 years. And I am still in it. I mean, I have accomplished so much, and I'm like night and day compared to someone that I was 10 years ago. People would probably be like, WTF? But I have a ways to go, and I'm fine with that. I don't think I'll ever reach this place where I want to go, but it's just bettering myself, doing the best that I can. You know, I mean, for example, I used to be a very violent person. I mean, I didn't talk about this in the talk show, did I?
Well, I know this about you, so I'm not sure if we talked about it.
Okay.
But
Lise will keep us in check. But yeah, I used to fight all the time, basically. And that's because I grew up with violence in my home when I was little. And so I was violent when I got big. And I was violent until I was like 29. I mean, bar fights, like full on, you know, high heels, little dress, like model, like punching people. I mean, we don't have to go into what I did, but it was really good.
Maybe we should. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. Not saying they didn't deserve it, but violence isn't the answer.
Yeah.
It's not the answer. But I used to be violent all the time, and it was just somehow something clicked for me where I let go of something that had to do with anger, rage, and protection and my inner child and all that stuff. And I just haven't even been close to being in any kind of physical altercation in so many years. So how does it go that something happens literally every month, sometimes multiple times a month, for at least like 15 years, and then all of a sudden it just isn't in my existence anymore? And that's like what happens when people are alcoholics and then they're sober, for example, like complete black and white change. You know?
But I bet, honey, that it's a lot of work. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Like, how was your journey with it? Like, can you describe it a little bit? Like, when did you become aware of it? Was it conscious? How did it change?
The violence?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I felt completely justified, you know, because it mostly occurred in like bars where, you know, men were drunk and they get handsy, touchy. And I was also drinking and very protective of myself and my friends, and overly protective, like compensating for the lack of protection that I received as a child, you know? And so I felt very justified. And in some cases, I literally was saving friends from being taken by some guy because she was, you know, too drunk or something. But yeah, I didn't see it as a problem, but then I realized, you know, somebody could get hurt. I could get hurt. I could really hurt somebody, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to, just because some guy was trying to touch my friend, I don't want him to get, you know, pushed in front of a car and get run over or something like that. So I didn't work on stopping being violent. I didn't attend anger management courses. I never got arrested. I was never in any kind of legal or any kind of trouble because of those fights. But I worked on my anger, my rage. And as a result of that, it's like violence just left the room. It was like, I don't have a place anymore here. She's not angry enough for me, you know? And so it wasn't, I don't even have to work on it. Like, you know how with alcohol and substances, like it's something that you work on every day, even if it's been 20 years. Like this isn't something, I mean, it's not similar, of course, but this isn't something that I need to work on. It's just gone.
But what do you think, why did you have so much anger? Like, was anger your way of protecting yourself?
Well, anger is a secondary emotion. So anger is always in front of sadness or fear, right? And so I had both major sadness and major fear, but I was taught anger as a child because that's all I ever knew. And so, you know, I would ask my mom, God bless her, she's so nice now, but I would ask her a simple question. She'd be like, you know, get out of here, you know, or I'm busy, or just like yell at me so angrily, or just hit me, you know? And so that was the language that I learned. And my grandfather was also violent, but he only used the belt, which I know that still sounds mean, but it's a lot nicer to use a belt than to like beat up a kid. So I had to unlearn this. I had to deprogram this. Like, this is a language that is used sometimes and can be effective in some ways, but there are other ways, you know? There are so many other ways. And so I started I just started working on that aspect of it, I guess, just, undoing that deep neural pathway that had been there for so long. That took a lot of time.
But do you think there is place for anger, though?
Oh, absolutely.
When do you think it's
absolutely? I mean, so many places. Like if you're in danger, or if somebody's, I don't know, stolen from you, or if somebody's, if somebody you love is in danger, or if there's like a serious injustice, I think anger has a very, very important place. Definitely. It's misused. I'm probably one of the greatest misusers in history of anger, but, historically not anymore. But yeah, it's got its place. For sure.
Yeah, I think it depends. Again, I totally agree. Like, anger is also a very helpful emotion to us. It shows us a lot, and it has its place. But yeah, the question is, how do we behave on it?
Yeah.
And like sometimes, as parents, and as you were describing your childhood, that's not the place. Like, that's not how you should treat the kid. Like that's you can't justify that.
Yeah.
It's like you can be angry, but you have to let it out in another way.
Yeah.
Not towards your kids.
Definitely. Yeah. And I feel for my mom. I mean, she was so young. She had me when she was 19, and she was a child herself, and her dad was so violent with her. So she learned it and she passed it on, and this is like kind of the thing I'm talking about, breaking the cycle, right? Like, if I were to have kids, am I going to continue this cycle, this intergenerational cycle, or am I going to break these generational chains and then free the future lineage, from this, and free the ancestors too while you're doing that, and just stop that by doing the work. And so that's pretty much the goal. I don't want to repeat these cycles. So I don't have kids now, so I still have time to make sure that I'm
so proud of you. So proud of you, girl.
Thank you. I don't think I would ever lay a hand on my kid if I had it, unless it like was running into traffic or something. I might want to scare it a little bit, so I might spank it so that they will never run into traffic again. But that might be it.
That's a small one. But how do you feel about? Let's try to go back to the social media. Do you believe that it's, what I'm trying to say here is that we all kinda, not all, but we're using social media today as a platform for growing our business, growing the awareness. Do you feel it's a place to show your negative emotions or show behind the curtains, let's say, like, or it's you use it as a mean to, I don't know, advertise yourself, to motivate people, to inspire people? Like, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah. So regarding social media, it's tricky, I suppose, if you have a personal account or a business account, and whether you're a child or an adult. So like, if you're an adult and you have a business account, like, what is your message for your company, right? If you're like, if you have a business for coaching, for example, it would be helpful to share some authentic, real emotions or experiences that you, or if you can anonymously share from your clients, that would help. I lost my best friend and I feel so destroyed and blah, blah, blah. That's really, really deeply sad. But other people lose people too. And they might be feeling the way you feel in that moment. And they can see that you're authentic and you're not this like fairy who's perfect all the time, And so I think in that case, it makes a lot of sense, right? So in the context of the company message, I think there are a lot of companies or businesses that it would be very strange if they were sharing some of those personal things. So yeah, depending on the message. Now, if it's a personal account, I think that you can basically do whatever you want, but there are people who just constantly complain, and there are people who just are constantly positive, and that's it, and I don't know, I'm not really like a huge fan of either of those, I guess. But if somebody's really personal and they don't want to share anything, they don't have to share anything. So if that's the reason why they're just like, I don't need people to know my business. I have this other kind of business, and I don't need a lot of my work people are on my social media, and I don't want them to know that I'm going through a divorce or whatever. You know, that's everyone's personal decision. But when you're purposely trying to like misrepresent yourself and withhold the authentic you and what you're really going through and feeling, it's also okay. But I just don't think it's as helpful as it would be if people would just kind of be a little bit more real. You don't have to like sob on camera, like, but you can just, you know, every now and then like express something that's really real for you that you would like to release. And sometimes sharing on social media can be a form of like catharsis, you know, like I feel seen. I mean, think about it. People are seeing your thing. We just want to be seen and heard. If somebody's like, I'm so sorry for your loss, sending you lots of love, hasn't changed anything, but it might make the person feel better to be acknowledged and seen. And I'm going through the same thing you're going through, you know, stuff like that. So
yeah, that's so true. I want to emphasize the fact that I'm being more active now recently on social media as well, and I belong to some of the communities as well, and it's so helpful. The more people comment, the more people send messages, it can be so therapeutic. It has its like healing quality to it. We shouldn't be afraid, but I think it's fear, actually. It's a fear of judgment. I think I was super scared actually for a very long time, because it has been my dream to be a coach and help people for as long as I can remember. I'm doing it just now when I'm 34, you know, and I think I am doing it now because I finally have the self-confidence. I know I can hold myself because I feel fulfilled. I feel whole, like nothing can break me, even if those negative comments are there, you know. I'm good with myself because I accept myself, and I accept all the emotions and the bad days and the good days. But what you said is super important. But I want to emphasize another thing, that actually what we want to say here is that it's not so important even what's happening on a social media, because I feel a lot of people are talking about it and they're putting a lot of emphasis on it, like but it's affecting people, and if you're like positive, how will other people feel? But I believe it's everyone's own responsibility. As long as in your own personal life you are authentic and you do allow yourself to have the bad days, the good days, the negative emotions, then you're good. Then it's your decision if you decide to share what you share or what you don't share. It's just, like you said, it can be a helpful means. I totally agree. But what's more important is how you are as a person in your own everyday life. I believe.
Definitely, I agree. And the light that the positivity brings on social media is really good. Like if you look at a lot of the biggest pages, it's about positivity and positive quotes and stuff. Like people want that, you know, people need that. And so I think it is great to post a lot of positive things, you know, for sure. And some pages are dedicated to pure positivity, and that's just their message, you know? So in that sense, they're being real. You know, maybe they don't post anything that is dark or negative, you know, and that's great. That's just their message. And a lot of people probably go there every day to read that positive message because they need it, or they read your messages on Facebook to see like not only your amazing, beautiful face and photos, but the incredibly profound, meaningful, relatable, helpful words on various topics that could affect various people in the moment they need it, you know, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is, I totally agree that we as people, we should just choose what we need, because for me, there's days when I need this inspiration, positivity, motivation, then I have the certain accounts that I visit. Then there's other days where I actually need much more support, or even I need, like we discussed before, to see other people's experiences about depression, for example, or about anxiety, for example. I don't need this positivity right now, but I'm responsible for the information that I go and seek in a social media. Like, what is it that I need in this moment? That
is beautiful. I mean, even with music, you know, I don't know how you do sometimes, but sometimes I want to listen to meditation music, and sometimes I want to listen to, like, I don't know, Deftones or something. You know what I mean? And I just allow that to come out.
Like the expression. Yeah.
Yeah. I have this kind of like I have a couple of dark playlists. One is for dancing, and the other one is just for like when I just feel like I want to, I don't know, rage, and I just want to like allow it the space. Okay, I see what's happening. I'm going to put this music on and just be in this for a little bit, and it'll pass. But what you were saying earlier about the fear of judgment, it's so real and it's so big, and it's not just in the way that people see you physically, it's in the way that people perceive your status, or what are my friends from high school or college going to think, or my friends back home. And so many people think I have this amazing life. What if they really knew? Just a lot of different things and fears that come to mind, and that's just there. That's just there. Sometimes it's going to get you so much, and sometimes it's good intuition, because I used to overpost in my 20s, like, girl, stop posting so much personal stuff, especially regarding breakups, and like, I can't believe I trusted this guy, his name is blah blah blah. Just like, ladies,
oh my God, that's so interesting.
Guy.
I would have loved to know that, Jeanette.
Oh man, she had her obnoxious moments for sure. But yeah, that's definitely oversharing. There is definitely an oversharing happening. So anyway, the fear is there sometimes to tell us, don't post this. This is personal. Nobody needs to know about this, right? There are those things, of course. And we all know what those things are. I mean, I don't even need to go through the list. You read on someone's Facebook and you're like, why are they sharing that? Why are they posting that? Or somebody, for example, who has a new boyfriend every month, and it's like, I'm in love. My heart's broken. I'm in love. My heart, like, that's their real experience that they might be feeling. But, it's, yeah. So it's sometimes the fear is more like intuition, and sometimes it's just there to show us that there's something there. And maybe if we can be courageous and vulnerable enough to open up to our friends on social media, to share this on a wider scale, and just like let people know that they're not alone,
But I would say that even this type of sharing, if it helps them, go for it. Like, seriously. Yeah. If this is something that makes you feel better, do it.
Post 1,000 baby pictures every day.
Exactly.
Puppy pictures, food pictures. Just do it. I mean, the truth is everyone's page is everyone's page, and if someone doesn't like it, they can go, right? That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Well, on a big picture, yes, of course, we want to get to the better place, and at some point you have to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, is this helpful? But if it is, then just do you. Yeah. Probably it was helpful for you then also when you were posting about your breakups.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think it was because I wasn't properly processing my emotions in like a healthy way. And so I was just like, drinking and ranting on Facebook instead of actually sitting with my emotions and talking to somebody who could help me understand and move past, instead of just literally venting. Because I think that's what it was more like. It was like venting on Facebook, which I think is different than sharing a vulnerable or, experience or lesson or something.
Definitely. But I think that's what you knew back then,
Yeah.
You were doing
I was good at it.
Yeah. That's good, but that's very good, because in psychology it's the worst case is always when we're suppressing, and when the most dangerous place is when we are not showing anything, when we stay isolated. So like it's always one step ahead if you're at least venting. It's better than getting yourself cut off from people. I think people should just decide what they want to do with their social media. Like, is this going to be something just for your friends, where you're going to be like, oh my God, y'all, I had this chili last night and I haven't been able to leave the bathroom for, if that's the kind of thing you want to do, that's great. If you want to have a platform and inspire and influence people, depending on what your message is, there's ways to do that. And hopefully through like authenticity, whatever that means for them. If they're authentically happy and positive, then be that way, or whatever it is. And so, some people just don't
don't care, and that's great. But some people really want to build something and really want to reach. So
I think the key word is here, authenticity.
yeah.
Like, I think it's so important. So important.
Yeah.
You can be positive if it comes from an authentic place. Like, we are not here trying to tell people don't be positive.
Definitely
Like, clearly
not, yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
And if
and
you
should.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
should. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Especially like if it is authentic.
Yeah.
Like, you should share it. Because another thing that I was thinking for myself, for example, is that at some point I was scared of showing my positive emotions. I didn't feel comfortable. I felt like people are going to judge me for being happy, or I'm too happy. And like, for example, I don't know if you know this about me, if we've been driving together, but I love to listen to very loud music when I'm driving. I think the whole street can hear me. and I'm just so much enjoying it. It's like my thing. I put the music loud and I'm singing and I'm dancing, and at some point I'm like, oh my god, I have had situations where cars next to me, they're like looking me with mean eyes.
Oh.
And then I'm like, I should put the music down.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But now I'm at the place I'm like, fuck it, I don't care,
Yeah.
because I'm having a great day.
Yes.
And I'm allowing, and I'm like exaggerating this energy.
Definitely.
I don't have to be mad or sad because you are going through a bad day, you know?
Right.
This is my day, and I'm allowed to feel this
Definitely.
good emotions, right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
I feel that we shouldn't be ashamed of being positive either. You know?
Definitely not. Especially if it's authentic.
Yeah.
You know, like if you were really, that's just who someone is. That's great. You know, I think positivity is such a powerful tool. And if we can just learn how to access it, like through the various tools to access it, like cognitive behavioral therapy books out there, working with coaches, and just reframing perspectives. And there's like so many ways to be positive. I think that it has such a profound effect on the way we view life and the decisions that we make and the relationships that we have. And it's a beautiful thing.
So yeah, anyways, I believe it's so important to allow all the emotions, not to be, you know, ashamed of whatever emotions. Like, the most important thing, like we discussed, is actually being authentic. And this because we as humans, we somehow want to compare ourselves to other people. We compare ourselves to these social media accounts. It's the quickest way to, I don't know, low self-esteem.
Definitely.
And this pressure of that we put on ourselves. I want to be perfect. I want to be like her. I want to be like this. I want to own those businesses. I'm doing so bad.
Yeah.
Like, you should just let it go.
Yeah.
And really, really just be who you are. Like, take time to know who you are. Everything is fine. We all have bad days, right? And good days, and just celebrate all of it.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's the little things, the little celebrations, you know, the little moments that sometimes are like the most profound and meaningful for us. Like a little gesture, you know, maybe that somebody does, for example, can mean more than you know, some big elaborate gift or something, you know. So I think it's really just about like being the best that you can be. It's so hard not to compare. I've done it so many times.
Yeah, me too.
And it not only in physical body, but like career status or relationship status or travel destinations. There's always like, oh man, you know, I'm not there, you know. And it's just comparison is, it's like a bad seed, you know. And I think one of the ways to kind of help change your perspective. So when I've felt bad about myself for some reason, you know, comparing myself to other people, if I choose to look at what I've accomplished and the great things that I've done in my life, I can shift my attitude. But if I keep going down that cycle and just keep going versus stop myself, pull myself out, and then say, wait a second, you know, I've accomplished a lot of things, and you know, I've got a healthy body, and okay, maybe I'm not married, but I've had a lot of really great experiences with some wonderful men, and you know, things like that. And in the 4 Agreements, which is a book by Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks about 4 things. One of them is mean what you say. Like communication, your word is everything. It's so powerful. Don't misuse your voice. Don't just say I love you, for example, or don't say hurtful things. I mean, he explains it so much better. It's been years since I read that. The second agreement is don't take things personally. This is such an important book. I think every human should read. The third one is don't make assumptions. And the fourth one is do the best that you can. And he says, even in a moment where if the best thing that you can do is put on your gym clothes and you didn't even go to the gym, that's the best you can do. At least you put your gym clothes on. You haven't put your gym clothes on in so long, or at least you woke up this morning and you didn't stay in bed for an hour. You only stayed in bed for a half hour looking at things that make you feel bad about yourself, Yeah. So like it's just the little things. If running a marathon is the best you can do, then do the best you can do. And that's different for every person. And that's why it's so dangerous to compare ourselves to other people,
Yeah, that's so profound. I want to read that book now.
It's amazing. Please read it. It's an easy read. It's a small book. I think it would take a few hours.
But yeah, the 4 things you mentioned, they're just like game changers, all of them.
Unbelievable. Changed my life. Really, that book changed my life.
Yeah, but the last point that you mentioned that we're discussing here, so important. Yeah. Like always just do the best you can. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Like, and it is like you said, even like, training for 5 minutes. This will already change your life. Like what stops us as humans is that we think we should be something, or I should be training for 1 hour, I should be running for 20 minutes, even though I have never run before. No, you don't. You don't. And you don't even have to be a runner if you don't like running. Like find something that you are enjoying, right? Yeah. It's like there's so much pressure that I have to do this. So this is so popular now. Everyone says that this is so healthy right now. I have to do it, even though I don't feel like it one bit. We don't. We're like so unique that it's just so important to really know yourself and what's good for you. Just take this one little step at a time.
Celebrate the little things and have compassion on your beautiful self.
Yes.
I'm so saying important. That to myself too. Yeah. I am not, I don't do anything perfectly at all. So I'm still learning every day.
Neither do I. Yeah. It's a journey.
Yeah. I want to learn with you.
Yes, we learn together. Yes. But is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
At the moment, just gratitude and just do the best that you can. Yeah. Be authentic, and to support your friends who may need your support, just listen. Just hear them, acknowledge them, and that's it. That's enough sometimes.
Well, thank you, love, for being here. I had an amazing hour. I so much appreciate your time and for you coming and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love you and Lise, and I just love what you're doing and the message that you're putting out there and the various topics that you're broaching, and it's so beautiful. Thank you for doing this work, and thank you for being a light.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.